want to tell you guys a story that very few people know. When I had to be maybe 13 or 14 years old, one of my relatives let me drive their car. And it was exciting, but it was scary at the same time because the car was a stick shift. Now, when you drive a stick shift, it's different than automatic. You actually have to put your left foot on what they call a clutch and then shift it into gear. And if you shift it into like the wrong gear, what happens is the car will begin to stall out. And if you do it too quickly, or if you do it out of order in any way, it causes the car to basically cut off. And I remember when I first took off, I was treating it like a video game. You know those video games in arcade. I'm driving. I got my one hand on the wheel. I got one hand on the shift, and I'm shifting, and I'm forgetting that I have to put my foot on the clutch before I shift. So I started shifting and then putting the foot on the clutch, and then it was a lot to think of. I'm like, man, it's a lot of multitasking. I'm not really good at multitasking. I'm like, whew. But in that moment, I realized that with the shift, I had to listen also to the engine. I was able to get the shift down correctly, I shifted to the next gear when I heard or was more familiar with the sound or the revving of the engine. I looked at the RPMs on the speedometer, and it helped me be able to understand what I was doing, the mechanics of what I was doing. I don't know how, Lord, you always have a way of allowing me to relate things to things that I've experienced. That's the same way that we look at shifts in our lives. We get behind the wheel, we're in our lives, we're driving around, we're not used to driving a stick, or we're learning how to drive a stick. A stick is a manual car with a manual shifter. And we're like, oh yeah, I got in there overconfident. I'm like, yeah, I got this. How many people have gotten in their lives and say, you know what, I got this. And we go in there overconfident, but we have to pay attention to the teacher, what God is teaching us through each of these situations, through these transitions, through these shifts in our lives. And we can't rely on the things that may have worked in the past. We cannot rely on our own blueprint for our lives to say, okay, this is how it's supposed to look. This is how it's supposed to sound. This is how it's supposed to be. We have to really focus upon the instructions that we're given. We have to be able to make sure that we are anticipating change, because the only thing that is constant, a wise person once said this, the only thing that's constant is change. So change is inevitable. Change will happen. Shifts in your life will happen. How will you anticipate the shift? Or what happens when a shift happens and you didn't anticipate it? When I was in that car, once I got to third gear, I'm like, okay, what happens when I go to fourth gear? Does it rev up even louder? Or I didn't anticipate what to do. And what happened? The car stalled out, because I was used to hearing it rev really loud for first gear, a little bit louder for second gear. I was like, okay, maybe third, fourth, fifth gear, it's the same way, but we cannot afford to become comfortable with the things that have worked before, the things that have happened before, because where God is preparing to take us is greater than where we've been. He's trying to take us higher than what we've ever achieved. And if we continue to rely on familiarity, we're setting ourselves up for failure. We're setting ourselves up to continually repeat cycles. This is why things in our lives are continually happening over and over and over again. You're like, why is this continually happening in my life? It's continually happening in your life because you're continually approaching it the same way. We're continually reacting to the situations the same way, which will yield same result. Same approach, same reaction equals same situation. And it continually happens over and over and over again. It's time to break the cycle. Will you break the cycle? Break the cycle with me. Stand up and say, no more. That's it. I will not approach it the same way. I will know that there will be shifts in my life, both anticipated and unanticipated. And be ready. Be ready for anything.